Fallon here, and welcome back to my kitchen. Thank you again for joining me for my second part of my three-part series on bread making. I love bread making because of how it takes me out of my mind and into what I'm doing. Especially today, where we're making pretzels. It's a lot of work, not so much exhaustive labor, but you're kneading for 10 minutes at a time. And the repetitive motions are just the most meditative part of bread making to me, and I am so excited to take this on with y'all. All of these books here you can get at the Lubbock Public Library. Today we're going to be using Baking Bread at Home, and I'm really excited about taking on this recipe. But we have so many other options too. This is just a very small sample of our bread baking books, but there's so many other cookbooks for you to get started on your culinary journey with. So today, let's get started on making pretzels. The first thing I'm going to do is cream our yeast, which I measured out on my kitchen scale, 15 grams. Water, also measured out in milliliters on my kitchen scale. Milk, and we're gonna cream that all together, just making sure everything's really well incorporated. And while I do that, I want to stand in defense of the kitchen scale. So for this recipe, it called for about 7 teaspoons of milk. And I just felt like I ended up dumping, some were more filled than the other. And so that's where the kitchen scale really comes in handy. Just making sure that it's a really precise measurement, especially when we have such few ingredients, because this is all there is to it. So right now my yeast is sticking to my milk and water, really well incorporated. And I think it's about time to move it into our dry ingredients. Our dry ingredients here are just flour and salt. And again, you can get those precise measurements from the book that I'm using, the cookbook that I'm using. Okay. I'm gonna pour that in there. Great. And then I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of melted butter as well. And now I'm going to mix it all together with my hands. I wash my hands very, very well before starting this video, up to kind of where my sleeves are, and multiple times. Oh, this is great. It's a looser consistency, but as I'm mixing it together, it's really, really tightening up exactly how I want it to. There we go. Beautiful. This is a great recipe to do with your kids or with your friends or on a date night even. It's so interactive, and you probably have everything you need right at home. Also doesn't take too long either. See, we're already really well incorporated. And now's my favorite part, the kneading. We're gonna knead for 5 minutes on a well-floured surface. Again, I clean this surface very well, maybe 2 or 3 times I sanitize, just to make sure that everybody's gonna be safe and have as much fun with this recipe as we can. So it's gonna take a good bit of flour, because this dough, as you can tell, is very sticky, and we don't want it sticking to our countertop while we're kneading. So I'm just gonna plop it all right there. Even the floury bits that I didn't incorporate so well. Just making sure to scrape everything out. Okay. And right before we knead, right now, I'm going to oil my bowl, because I will forget if I don't do it now. I'm oiling our bowl because after we knead this for 5 minutes, we're sticking it back in here and letting it rise until it doubles in size, which will take about an hour, but my house is a little bit cold today, so it might take more like an hour and a half. But we're oiling it so that the dough does not stick to the sides and it comes out nice and easy. It's also gonna help it rise, so won't like inhibit it from rising. Okay, so I'm just gonna roll this oil around, making sure my ends are nice. I just use traditional olive oil. The recipe does not specify what we're looking for, but we're not going for a flavor or anything here. So I'd say just a mild oil or a mild olive oil would be great. So So my way of kneading is I just kind of let my hands take control and do what feels right. I am obviously not a master baker or bread maker, and have kind of watched a few videos on the methods, but I really just like to take my time and meditate with my bread. So I'm gonna do this for about 5 minutes, then I'm going to stick it into my bowl, let it rise until it doubles in size, and then I'll see you back right here. So a lot has happened since we've been apart. I let my bread rise for well over an hour. I didn't time it because I wasn't going for how long. I was going for double in size. So I just paid attention to it throughout the morning, trying to figure out when's it gonna reach that double point. Once it did, I put it out on a well-floured surface. Again, I cleaned it very well before beginning. And then I cleaned my hands really well so that I could knead my dough for another 5 minutes. This time, I broke a sweat. From there, I divided my big dough ball into 16 smaller dough balls. Since then, I've been rolling out the dough balls into 16 pencil size, like pencil thickness pencils of about 12 inches. This is the part where having a friend or a little helper comes in very handy because, again, I'm breaking out into a little sweat. But that's the fun part of baking, right? Another fun part of baking that this is a great example of is how imperfect my pencils are. So 12 inches was the length, and some of them are more than 12 inches and some of them are less. And I didn't measure with anything. I just kind of eyeballed it. And they're imperfect, and that's what I love about it. It reminds me that, striving for perfection takes the fun out of things. So I've had a great time rolling them out, and we're about to have a great time making them into some pretzels. I'd like to talk about the shape of the pretzel. We call a pretzel because of its shape, right? But I'd like to argue that when we want a pretzel, we don't want something that's pretzel shaped. We want something that tastes like a pretzel. So I ask that you keep this in mind as I make pretzels into pretzel shapes, and give yourself some patience too while doing it. The cookbook does an excellent job of explaining how to put it into a pretzel shape. I probably won't do nearly as well as a job, but hey, that's an incentive to check out the book. Also, while I'm making my pretzels into pretzels, I have a pot of water right here on the stove with salt. That's going to be what we poach our dough in before we stick it in the oven that I'm preheating at 400 degrees right now. Okay, here we go. So we're starting out with the horseshoe shape. We're going to twist, and then fold underneath and stick the sides. Okay, I'm going to go through that one more time, starting with my second. I'm also going to probably need to get a little platter to make some more room here. So we're going with a twist, and through the middle. This one looks even better. I am sure that by the time I get to number 16, they're going to look just like a pretzel you get in the mall. Probably not. Those are really perfect. Horseshoe. Twist, through the middle, and stick it. Okay, I'm going to spend a little bit more time making some more horseshoes that I twist, and through the middle, and then I will see you back here in a second. I hope it's not too disorienting that I moved you a little bit around, but I wanted to give you another angle of our pretzel making technique, our pretzel shape making. Okay, so we have our horseshoe. We're gonna do a twist, and a pull through the center. I can't reiterate this enough. Make sure you pinch the ends. That's gonna make sure our pretzel maintains its shape. And another big part about the pretzel maintaining its shape is another waiting period. This time we're gonna put the pretzel underneath a kitchen towel, and it's right here off camera for 10 minutes. I know it can be so hard to wait when we're excited to make something, but this step is super duper important. So our next step is then gonna be poaching our pretzels. I have a pot of water, salted water, just right at a simmer. And I'm gonna stick my pretzel in there until it's ready to be flipped. That's just once it rises to the surface. And then I'm gonna transfer it to a little baking rack that I have right here. As you can see, I have one successful pretzel and one successful set of pretzel sticks. Even the best techniques sometimes don't work out. But isn't that the fun part about baking, right? Imperfections. So after these guys drain on a baking rack and a kitchen towel, here we have a pretzel. You're gonna carefully stick that into the simmering water. If you're working with small children, this might be a step to have them watch. The water, even though it doesn't look boiling hot, it's still really hot at that simmer. Okay, my pretzel is rising, and I just want to show you a few tools that I like to use. Sometimes a chopstick is best. The cookbook recommends a slotted spoon. I personally like the angled of the spatula. So I'm just gonna stick it under there, being very gentle to lift it and flip it. Excellent. This one too should be ready once it rises to the surface. I'm just gonna make some room. Okay, and then this I think is the hardest part. This is where my pretzels become pretzel sticks. Just making sure that it is very well supported by your tools is the best way to ensure that you got a good shape. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna let it dry and try moving on to another pretzel. Here we have one that seems about ready, holding its shape. I'm gonna drop it in there very carefully. I also find that smaller pretzels are easier to work with. There's more less room that I have to use both tools. So in that last one that was a little bit smaller, my spatula fit right underneath it. This one I'm gonna definitely have to go with both tools. Okay, and then a very, very quick and careful flip right here. Excellent. Maintain the shape. I really think that first part too is essential in getting a good pretzel shape. Okay, and as you can tell, the dough's really puffing up. This is like what you do with a bagel as well, which is another fun bread to make at home. Okay, and then on to my cooling rack. Awesome. I'm gonna work on these last few and catch you for our last step. We've made it to our last step, and that step is taking our pretzels that we've shaped into the pretzel shape and then poached in the salted water, dried, and then placed on a baking sheet. And we're gonna glaze them with about 2 tablespoons of milk and an egg whisked really well together. So we're just gonna brush them like that. If you don't have a pastry brush like this, that's totally fine. You can just stick a paper towel into the glaze and then dab them with the paper towel. And then you can top them with salt. Now, if you want to make some sweet pretzels, this would be the time that you add a little cinnamon sugar mixture instead. Okay. Perfect. So I'm going to stick these into the oven about 20 to 25 minutes, just until the top layer is a nice golden brown. Okay, and I'm also going to grab my pretzels out of the oven that have been in there. Here we have them. They are just shiny and delicious looking. As you can tell, we also have some pretzel sticks. Those were the pretzels that kind of had a rough ride in the boiling water, but they're gonna be delicious too. Actually, now I'm thinking about making, having them with some summer sausage and maybe a spicy honey mustard. That sounds delicious, and I think I'm gonna get started on that. But thank you so much for being with me while we made pretzels and had a great time doing that. Remember that it's not what it looks like, it's what it tastes like, and imperfection is perfect in my eyes. Thanks so much, and I'll see you for part 3 of our bread making series.